And that's what it was like then. We had gutsy people who said, let's do it. And no one thought that little old Brea could get a Brea Mall. And a lot of our neighbors kind of made fun of us.
My name is Don Schweitzer. I'm here today on behalf of the beautiful Brea Old and New and the Brea Historical Society to interview a couple of gentlemen who helped make Brea what it is today. Past mayors, the Honorable Wedin and the Honorable Rex Gaede.
Let's talk about the fall of '68. An assistant city manager called in for an interview with the city council. 4 out of the 5 council members were there. And we had this delightful conversation. And the one question they said was, if we hire you, can you get us a regional mall? And my response was, absolutely. As history unfolded, later that night, I was offered the job. The next day, I called a friend of mine at Sears Roebuck, who was the largest retailer in the world, and I said, Dave, I need to talk to somebody about how you put together a regional mall, and I need to probably do it fairly quickly.
My job depends on it.
He gave me the head of real estate for the western region of Sears Roebuck. I sat down with him and I said, and it's not quite these words, but it's close. Do you have a checklist or something you look for when you evaluate sites? And he said, well, frankly, we do. He said, here's what I look for. And he went down through all of them. And so now I've got my checklist. The issue of the freeway becomes really, really important. The Orange Freeway, 57, had been planned and designed and was sitting on the shelf waiting for their time to jump and get funded. Somebody up north, and I forget where it was, said, I don't think we want a freeway. Orange County said, we do. And the 57 freeway was funded, bang, done, going, and it went coincidentally right next to the site where the Brea Mall is today. It's also interesting that one of the early conversations about tenancy in the Brea Mall was the same guy Rex talks about, which was John Nordstrom. Now, it's interesting that Rex probably had earlier contact with him than I did or anybody else. We had a conversation with John Nordstrom about a Nordstrom. I didn't know what a Nordstrom was. In California, there were none. He said, you need to learn what we do. And I said, I'd love to do that. He says, well, come to Seattle and we'll look at the stores. So Doretta and I went to Seattle to meet John Nordstrom, and he took us around to the stores. And he knew every employee. He knew exactly what he wanted to do. It was an amazing thing, made a decision. We sat in the room with the family when they decided to come to Brea. This is the scary part. He gave Doretta a credit card. When we were there.
Nordstrom credit card?
Nordstrom credit card, had no limit. I said, John, are you crazy? You can't do that. He said, oh, live it up, love it.
You weren't on the council then?
Oh, no, no, not at all.
So the freeway was funded.
Yep.
And was finally built. And then the mall, you had the groundbreaking of the mall.
Yep.
Shortly after that, like the next year, I believe.
In fact, we had the opening of the mall, I think, before it was opened on the freeway.
Yes, yeah. It was.
Yeah. I remember being on the freeway when the freeway was inaugurated.
Yep.
With no cars. Just,
yep. And bicycles, I think.
Yeah.
Now, you were mayor the year the mall opened.
That's correct.
And you had
I had that pleasure.
Yeah, they had a big party, a big ceremony during that time.
You know, it's ironic that when the Brea Mall was being designed and these ideas were percolating around and we were having discussions with Union Oil, because that was a pretty critical partner then, and there were some tense conversations that went on between the city of Brea and the Union Oil Company, as positive and as supportive as they've been over the years. But originally we said, if you're going to design this mall, why don't you give us the roof? And we'll put the Civic Cultural Center on the roof. Well, they went bananas. Are you crazy? We're not going to do that. I said, okay, if you don't want to put us up there where we can be a part of the center, then give us one of the pad sizes so that right next to May Company or Sears or Penny's, there'll be the City Hall. That'll never happen. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Okay, then how about right next to the ring road? Well, that's where we are today. It had never been done before. We said when the mall was being developed, we said, you've got to give something back to the community. And they basically gave the plot of land that the hotel was on to the Brea Foundation, which became then the lessor to the hotel people. So we built in an income stream for the Brea Foundation to make that all work. The Brea Mall was built on a handshake. There wasn't a signed document. There wasn't an agreement. There wasn't a contract. There were two men that stood on a bridge in Schaumburg, Illinois, and shook hands. And that handshake carried the force and effect of law for years afterwards. Homart Development Company, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Sears Roebuck, after the president that shook hands at Homart was long gone, other presidents from Sears honored that agreement, even though we couldn't have forced them to do it, which is really pretty amazing when you think about it.
It's a little different today.
When the Brea Mall was designed, State College Boulevard isn't the way it is today. It was kind of right down through the middle of the property. And the shopping center designers told me one day that it's too bad that we put the road where we did. We had just spent, I don't know, $500,000 or something to build that road, brand new. I mean,
straight through.
Fairly a car had been on it. And they said, it's too bad you put it where you did, because if you had put it closer to the freeway, we could have put another major department store there. And I'm seeing my career ending right before my eyes. So I had to go to the city council at the next meeting and explain in private session what I had done and the fact that we had screwed up. And one of the councilmen looked at me and he said, now, excuse me, you mean to tell me that if the road were here instead of here, we could get another department store? And I said, yes, sir, that's right. He said, what's the problem? He said, move the street. We have another department store because of it. You mentioned the fact that the deal for the Brea Mall could have exploded, and it could have. But we had been going to Chicago probably once a month for years to coordinate the development of the site, to the consternation of some people who felt we were spending too much money. At the very, very end, the 11th and a half hour, Homart called and said, it's you or a shopping center in Arizona. We can't do both, and we're going to have to set one back. And he said, we have a personal relationship with Brea. We like the relationship that's developed there over the years. We're going with Brea. And it was personal relationships that did it.
Both of you had a trip to New York when the lights went out.
Yes.
I know that's a
76,
good
I think that was.
76?
Well, we were looking for financial activities that would be appropriate. And of course, you do have a relationship with the folks from Sears that were coming in with the actual buildings at that time. So we would have to make some calls on that kind of opportunity, particularly in New York, where the funding giants are. Got there and got ourselves into a hotel and then went to a show that night of Chicago, as I remember.
Chicago's the name of the play.
And about halfway through, the lights went out. And they didn't come back on. And so that was it. And I never did see the rest of the play. We then walked from there to our hotel, and all the devil was taking place at that point. People smashing windows and grabbing stuff. And elevators didn't work. So we had to, go up and down the stairs to our rooms, and unfortunately...
With an escort?
With an escort, because a lot of things were taking place. We came across the country. We had a 3-day stop there, and the first day we're dead.
How long was that blackout?
It was for several days.
72 hours at least. And we got out on about the 50th hour, 48th, something like that.
Now, there's something that the mayor is not telling you, and it's probably important for the cause of accuracy to indicate that. After the play was half over and we didn't get to see the rest of it, we trudged back to our hotel, and we lost the mayor. We didn't know where he was.
Well,
and
I was looking for...
You were trying to be helpful.
Yes.
The next thing I know, and we're looking up, and we're right at the edge of Central Park, and there's no traffic signals. There's nothing going on.
But a lot of cars.
And I'm looking around, and there's this familiar figure out in the middle of the street. He's got his mayor badge hanging on his pocket. He's directing traffic right at the edge of Central Park.
In coordination with two cops at two other intersections.
Great job.
Okay. He represented Brea well during the blackout.
At the end of Prop 13, or the starting of Prop 13, we lost some money. At least we perceived that we were going to lose some money. So we put a fee on the mall. And a man that's still a friend of mine today was the lawyer for Sears, Regional, West Coast. He sued me personally for $20 million. And we ended up saying, Sears said, if you'll let us have another department store site, we'll forget about our lawsuit. And I said, oh, I don't know if I can make that work or not. Well, it took about 2 seconds before the council said, do it. We did it. The lawsuit went away, and we got another department store.
And of course, the ice rink never did fulfill the expectancy that it did. So that became another plot, too, for a new store.
Brea is what it is today in a large part because of both of you.
And others, but that's very kind of you to say.